We're two hitchhikers. We met while hiking Mount Baldy with mutual friends, wasted no time, got engaged on a frozen alpine lake, got hitched, and have been adventuring together since. We're embarking on a new adventure of living big in a tiny home. Let's see how this goes.
Adventure awaits.
The week has finally come to prioritize the finishing of the shower floor. What seemed like a straightforward process turned out to be a tedious process of many steps, with much waiting in between cure times. It was like watching paint dry, except in this case it was mortar, thinset, and sealant. All right, when I first started this shower tiling project, I was very excited because this is just up my alley, but I did not realize how tedious this process would actually be. So before anything, you have to have the subfloor, which was existing. Then a couple of months ago, we actually did the sloped mortar bed. That was totally fine. We got the 1/4 inch per foot slope. We were A-okay. The next part would be installing the shower pan liner. And I thought, okay, that's not gonna be too fun, but how bad can it be? Well, it was pretty tedious.
All right, so the mortar bed has cured. I swept up the floor and I measured twice, right? Measured twice, cut once. So I have this down here. This will be the shower pan liner base. What I've done is I've measured the shower floor, and then I have measured up to the curb height, and then I need to go an additional 2 inches above that curb height in order to be safe, to make sure that our membrane is entirely waterproof. So I'm cutting 51 by 60 inches and a half. Now let's hope I can measure correctly because I don't have another pan liner.
The first layer is the subfloor, which already exists. And a couple of months ago, we installed the slope mortar bed, so that is checked off the list. So the first part, outside of measuring and cutting, is making sure that when you cut, so you lay it all out, and then you have to make these little X's where the bolts actually go to bolt the shower drain, the flange, and the shower pan liner all together. So it was quite stressful actually making these cuts in the shower pan liner, which is the waterproof membrane. I had to make sure that I was doing it in the right place. Then it's actually cutting the hole where the shower drain is, where the water drains out. Once that's in place, I had to pull everything back again and then get the silicone, do a bead of silicone all the way around the edge of the shower pan drain, or shower drain, excuse me. Then I have to fold the shower pan liner back over, make sure everything is set, pop those screws back through those holes, and then start with the shower pan itself to make sure that the walls, the dam walls, no pun intended, are properly secured in place. Now, usually you want to keep the shower pan liner in a warm environment. That way you can stretch it really easy. Well, hasn't been warm here for some time, so stretching that was not easy in and of itself. But we made it work. I set up the walls. I did the hospital folds on the corners. Then I was able to staple everything on the edges, making sure to not be too far down onto the shower pan liner, because those staple holes are holes and water can get through them. So I had to make sure they were up above the proper location. Then when everything was set and I sealed the edges with the X15 shower pan liner adhesive, which is very important, you can't substitute it with anything different, we were able to test it with water. So I had to get a 5-gallon bucket and then some, pour it in the shower floor itself and let it sit for, I think we did it about 6 hours.
All right, well, the shower pan liner has no leaks and saw no air bubbles. The water level maintained the same height throughout that duration of time. So we went ahead and let the water drain. I dried the shower pan liner. Now the next step is to do a dry run fit of the pebble stone tiles that we're gonna be putting in for the base of the shower.
And now that the dry fit is complete, we can move on to the secondary mortar bed. The recommendations for this part was to make it a little bit more on the dry side. As you can see, there are tiny pebbles around the rim of the flange. Now, there were a lot of instructions from different professionals, YouTube videos, websites, about whether or not to use the pea gravel in this particular situation. In all of this back and forth, Ruben decided to go with what made the most sense. follow the manufacturer's directions for who made the shower drain itself. So we went to the manufacturer's website, and sure enough, they do recommend using pea gravel. The reason to use the pea gravel in this particular situation is to allow for proper drainage of water with the existing weep holes. So Ruben is kind of amazed at my patience for being able to do this. He's much more happy drilling and sawing and nailing and all of that stuff outside. But this is actually very therapeutic for me. I enjoy it. And it reminds me a lot of back in the day when I had a little side hustle of making fancy cakes. And this right here, this mortar, reminds me of when you have to fill in the gaps on a cake, because when you make your fondant and you roll it out and you drape it over the cake, it's very important that you have very straight lines and very straight edges. So one of the tricks to fill in any possible little not so straight spots is to mix your cake crumbles with frosting and patch it. And we used a level, we used all kinds of things that is very typical in masonry work, and I'm finding a lot of similarities. So yeah, it's funny how this is taking me down memory lane. Making cakes, that seems like a lifetime ago. All right, I finished mortaring the curb, and I think I did all of my checks correctly. So everything is level, everything is square on the sides and on the top going lengthwise. I had to make sure that on the curb, there's a slight pitch to the top of the curb, because we want to ensure that the water, any water that gets on top of the curb, actually runs into the shower and not into the restroom floor itself. And I did it. I am pretty amazed. So yay, cake decorating, baking experience came in handy today. All right, we are ready for the thinset. Notice this one is polymer modified. That's very important for shower floor. So we have the shower pan, the mortar down, then we have the shower pan liner, then we have another level of the mortar down, which will be the base for the thinset. So if you ever are going to do tile on your shower floor, make sure you don't get the pre-mixed thinset, because that is considered mastic and that does not have the polymer modification to it. So that's very important. You can use the thinset apparently on shower walls, just not on the floor. But yeah, here we're gonna mix it up and get going on our tile. First, we have to start with cold water. All right, here we go, mixing it up. All right, it's been 5 minutes of mixing. It's nice and smooth. Look at that, it's like cake batter. Who wants to lick the spoon? All right, it's grout time. And yep, we're using black grout. Because we decided to use a black grout, I needed to make sure that we sealed everything first before putting in the grout, because the black grout can actually stain the pebble tiles. So I did a couple of coats of sealant, had to wait another day, then I was able to finally grout, had to wait another day, then I was able to put 2 more coats of sealant, and then I think we were finally done. So why did we go with black grout when the white grout seems so much easier? Well, if you recall, we have a high iron content in our water, and even though we will have a filtration system, people who have a high mineral content in the water know that calcium buildup, everything gets through even if you have a water softener. So We thought the rust color is probably not going to be ideal, turning the white grout a pinkish color, so let's just go with a black grout. Plus, it sort of just keeps in line with all of the lava rocks that we have going on here, so it keeps with the theme. Now, I do want to say we are just DIYers and we are just sharing our journey here with you. So if you plan to do this on your own, be sure to do your own research because every situation is definitely different, and consult professionals if you can. So one question I'm going to assume that some of you might have, because this is such a tedious process here of putting in all of the tiles, is why we didn't just go with a shower insert. Well, that would have been too easy, right? I mean, so let's see what Ruben has been up to.
We have a power box right here that's going to be providing the power for the gadgets that we have in here. And yeah, solar charger and batteries are going to be over here. Washer and dryer and stuff are going to be over there. Hopefully this works out. Now I get to put insulation.
Now that the insulation is in place, Ruben can button it up with OSB and plywood. This week, we fared far better with regard to any windstorms. However, the weather still showed up. And as much as we were ready to move on to the next set of projects, it was a very good reason to just sit down, relax, and take a break. So what are the projects coming up? Well, we still have quite a few things to get done. Although the shower floor itself is complete, we still have to work with the interior walls, especially where the wall meets the shower floor. We also have to begin working on the tile for the bathroom, and there is still more to be done on the shed itself. I think Ruben is going to start on the floor next. It looks like there are a couple more winter storms in the forecast, so we'll see how much we get done. But those are the challenges for the future, Ruben and Natasha. As always, we thank you so much for following along on our adventure of building out this tiny house. Check out our next video next Sunday. See you soon, and don't forget to hit that like button.